Several days ago, there was a very important story told that brought some very interesting responses. So let's see what it evokes for us today. It's a Taoist story. It's a story about a man called Hu Lo. Now, Hu Lo, at a very early age, saw his father brutally murdered by a man in their neighborhood. So from that time on, Hu Lo harbored in his heart hate and revenge. And as he grew, that knot of hatred and the need for retribution grew and grew in him. But as it happened, Hu Lo was a very skinny, puny little fellow. He hardly had enough strength to lift a sword, much less wield it. But then one day, one of his friends said to him, "You know, Hu Lo, you let that man treat you like shit," referring to the murderer of his father. "What are you going to do about it?" said his friend. And Hu Lo said, "I don't know," with great anger and frustration. His friend said, "Well, I heard that there's a lord in a neighboring province who has a magic sword. Why don't you try to borrow it?" So, fired up, Hu Lo made the long journey to the province where the Lord lived, and he approached the Lord. He said, "I will indenture myself to you as a servant, and I will leave my wife and children here as surety if you will just let me borrow your magic sword." Well, the Lord said, "As a matter of fact, I have 3 swords that have been in our family for many generations. They have not been used. They do not kill. The first sword is the sword of invisible light. It has no shape nor form, and can only be seen by very few as a faint glow, but it can sever a man's head from his shoulders, figuratively speaking, without him even feeling it or knowing it. The second sword is the shadow sword. This sword has a shape and a form and makes a slight swishing sound. It can slice a man through from head to toe without creating an opening, nor cause any pain. And the third sword is the sword of the night. And this sword cannot be seen in the night time. It makes a slashing sound and can also sever a man from head to toe, but the wound will close immediately and just cause a little pain. So Hu Lo chose the night sword. But the Lord said, "You cannot take this sword from its casing without completing the necessary purification and ritual." So Hu Lo undertook a time of fasting and completing the rituals that needed to be done. And then he took the night sword. When he returned to his village, and he went to the house of his father's murderer, he found him in a drunken stupor. And so Wu Lo took the sword and swished it 3 times through the father's killer. He did not move. But then, as Wu Lo was turning to leave, the son of the murderer entered the doorway. So Wu Lo again used the night sword 3 times, and then he left. The next morning, Wu Lo's father's murderer woke up scolding his wife. "Why didn't you cover me through the night? Now I've got a sore throat and pain in my stomach." And then the murderer's son said, "It was strange, last night Wu Lo came into our house and he waved his arms around in a strange way, and now I'm aching all through my body. I wonder if he's placed a curse on us." But from that time on, Wu Lo had no more anger in him, nor did he harbor any thoughts of revenge. It was done. What is the deep meaning of this story for us? What are these 3 swords? How do they relate to those 3 dimensions of life? The nitty-gritty cause and effect level, the occult level, and the undifferentiated level, the energy of oneness, compassion, pity, etc., and so forth. What's the deep meaning of this story on the various levels of existence and stories? What are these swords? What do they mean?
The 3 levels of existence.
They certainly do. They certainly do. That's right. So you can see their deep meaning. But what about the enactment of Wu Lo? The sword didn't kill. The sword he chose caused some ache, pain, reaction, in other words, and yet was effective in eradicating completely all the hate and revenge that he had festering in him. What's the deep meaning of this story?
Why would the other swords not have done the same thing?
It's an interesting question if we look at it from the viewpoint of those three levels of existence, isn't it? The sword of invisible light that cannot be seen, and we know that there are those who use light and healing, sending light to someone to heal, which if you take it to a level is trying to get rid of the demon in that person. Wouldn't you agree? Using light, love. And the second sword, the shadow sword, is like working in the occult level, isn't it? Makes a slight swishing sound. Didn't cause any pain. And the night sword that he used, do they have meaning in that sense? Would you agree? But for Rouleau, importantly, to complete by having that sword. Otherwise, what would have happened with that hate and revenge that was not able to be requited in any way? Helpless. He was helpless, eating himself up with hate and anger.
So would it mean that when we still are carrying emotion, there is a way to take it out and bring it back?
You bet there is. You bet there is.
Of both healing and bring it back to the energy for the other one to have his own healing to achieve.
Absolutely. So we can see the importance of this story at its levels. Unfinished business. Who's got unfinished business? All of us. All of us have unfinished business.
Otherwise we wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here.
So what is the night sword? I can't understand.
Okay, well, we really have to think about what this night sword represents on that level of the nitty-gritty level, and what does it mean by him choosing that sword? Put yourself in his place. Why would you choose the night sword and wield it so that it could cause a little pain, make a little slashing sound? In other words, evoke a reaction.
So you're dealing with it sort of here and now in the physical plane, and you're speaking with discernment, like,
Yes.
and kind of, yeah.
And aren't you doing that just by confronting that murderer? Aren't you doing it just by confronting that murderer?
But he's not really confronting in the story, but subconsciously, I would say more, it's happening at a level where, because he doesn't know, he's not awake.
Oh no.
Nevertheless, the sun bringing back the...
So what's the significance of this sword and having that sword being able to go to that murderer's house and confront him whether he's drunk or not drunk and wield that sword?
It's, I can just sort of relate to a little bit of what I felt when I was dealing with some family members that are kind of very emotional, and the frustration and the anger comes up, and sometimes, a couple of times I hung up or said what I needed to say. But then it's interesting what you're saying about the arms flying around, because it's you can only do so much, and then that energy's kind of dancing around, and to me it was about sort of letting that go.
Uh-huh.
You know, like letting that. You can say what you need to say, but are you going to keep carrying it? And so once we say what we need to say, it's like a letting go,
Let it go, let it go.
and then coming back to ourselves.
Right.
Because otherwise we're still out there, we're still dancing in the night with that energy, and
So what's the significance of this wielding the sword? That Pulo was able to walk out of that house knowing that it was done. There was no more hate, there was no more anger, there was no more need for revenge.
Cut the bond. The sword cuts the bond.
Yeah.
Which includes, his own bond to that.
You bet. So what is unfinished business?
Everything that brings emotions. The need to harm the other one instead of taking the sword of God.
Yeah.
There is still a need to give pain.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And what do you think is the significance? What would be that ritual, the purification that Pulo had to go through to prepare himself to wield this sword? Looking at what it is that we've been talking about over these past months, about this state of Satchitananda, where is this place?
Presence.
Yes? That?
Peace.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we can call it that. Come to that place in a... Yes.
So it's sort of shedding the mind stuff in that purification and coming
That's right.
down to...
Mm-hmm. Right.
Knowing that almost unconscious, but being prepared to do it.
That's
being
right.
ready and prepared.
Like the samurai, or like the tea master, like all of these things that we know, isn't it? Coming to that place. What is that place? That's the question that's been asked, and it still remains to be answered. What is that place? Thank you.